How's it going, fellow Force users? Welcome to my thoughts and breakdown, if you will, on the little special look sizzle reel of the Obi Wan Kenobi series. Now, a lot of you may have already seen this since it did leak yesterday, and I'm kind of sensing from the crowd of Star Wars fans, it's a bit of a mixed bag, I suppose, and I understand both perspectives. They're a little bit underwhelmed because today is Disney Plus Day, where we're getting a lot of stuff coming out, and not only that, it's a very interesting choice that they locked this sizzle reel, little insight look of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series behind Disney Plus. Like, it's just a 1 minute little trailer that they could have uploaded to YouTube. But nevertheless, I don't want to start off negative or anything. I'm very, very happy with what I'm looking at. I'm very, very excited, so I wanted to offer my thoughts on it. A lot of you know this, but Deborah Chow and Ewan McGregor did go on to discuss how the starting point is obviously looking after Luke. They were saying after such a horrible, thing Obi-Wan has been through, at least despite in such dangerous times where Jedi are on the run, there's Jedi hunters out there, at least he has a task still. But it's about, and they emphasize this, where the story goes from there. Obviously, because that's what this whole show is about. So over that, obviously, they were relaying clips of, episode 3, where Obi-Wan is on that EOP, and he hands off Luke to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. And speaking of the EOP, it's nice to know that in this concept art of the modern day Obi-Wan that we're going to see in this series, he's still riding an EOP on Tatooine. And I have to say, just looking at it on screen right now, I love the look of Obi-Wan at this point in time. It's very accurate to what fans or, even statues, if any of you are fans of Sideshow collectibles, I believe that Vader one I've got in the background there was a part of the Mythos line, and they did a very similar one for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I believe it's almost identical, and it's kind of obvious what he would be wearing on Tatooine, how much more coarse and rough and irritating he would look, with his visual appearance, living on the dunes of Tatooine and whatnot. But my interest peaked when we saw some of the concept art of a Sith Inquisitor with a couple of stormtroopers arrive on Tatooine. My best guess is that this is Tatooine, despite us going to multiple different locations in this series. And my first instincts to this is that as much as I am looking forward to this, and I'm not going to be mega nitpicky about this, I'm not as alienated, if you will, I air quote that because some fans really, really are, about the existing canon and, how this will work, how much will it kind of potentially not fall in line with the original trilogy. So my first thoughts, just to kind of be as objective as I can, a Sith Inquisitor arriving on Tatooine, how will that end up? Isn't that really sketchy, even any presence on Tatooine? And maybe that sounds silly to say, because obviously this whole adventure of Obi-Wan in this series is going to have to, springboard him into a situation where he leaves Tatooine and goes to these different locations and whatnot to kind of all at the end goal look after Luke Skywalker. So I'm wondering with this Inquisitor, and we'll get onto the identity of the Inquisitor, it could be one of the early fights in the series before he clashes blades with Darth Vader, and we'll get onto if that's going to be a real fight with Vader or a revision one, because fans are debating that. And you may recognize her because it is Trilla from Fallen Order with basically the exact same design. Now, the reason why this is potentially problematic is that if, spoilers for the end of Jedi Fallen Order, it's been out for a long time now, there's your warning. Now, Trilla, she gets completely yeeted by Darth Vader at the end. She gets, I believe she gets impaled. Now, the timeline of these two shows is that Jedi Fallen Order takes place 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, if I do remember correctly. Now, the Kenobi Show takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So Trilla should be dead, but she's still here 5 years later, serving her lord, Vader, and going after Kenobi, as it seems, she's arriving on Tatooine. Now, the reason why this might not be problematic at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, the Darth Maul excuse, I mean, Jesus, that guy got cut in half and fell down. You could argue his head should have splat as well. So, if you're a fan of that, and you're saying you're not a fan of this, and all of the other things that have I guess happened in Star Wars, you kind of have to apply that logic to it. So they could be retconning it, or there might not really be a retcon. She might have just survived, and Vader could have subjected her to such dark side turmoil again, like the Inquisitors kind of go through to even turn in the first place, because we can't forget, Sith Inquisitors are fallen Jedi, and they go through a horrible time to be bent from their will of light to the dark. So it could have happened again, and now she's arrived with even more conviction with serving Vader in Jedi Fallen Order to kind of getting stabbed, but then turning even more to go after Kenobi. As I said, though, I'm guessing that she might die, same with the Stormtroopers, to kind of, that's where I brought up the sketchy thing. If there's any presence on Tatooine at all, isn't that dodgy? But then again, Vader would only be after Kenobi, not Luke, and this is probably what springboards Kenobi to leave the Tatooine system, if you get where I'm going, to draw them away, because that's the most important thing to remember. They have no idea about Luke Skywalker. They're just after Kenobi, so that's probably why he's escaping, and I could be wrong. Trilla might not die on Tatooine. She could be planet hopping, finding Obi-Wan this whole time in pursuit of him. That will lead to a duel at some planet in the locations that you're seeing on screen, and then eventually I'm guessing Obi-Wan will best Trilla, and then that will lead to this photo you're seeing on screen right now, the potential actual physical duel between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know every single location here, but a couple of them do look like Coruscant. I did think that this one I'm showing right now, it reminded me of like I know the Jedi Temple got sacked, but it would be really cool to see like the Jedi Temple still being, you know, held up by stormtroopers, and you can see the presence here in this particular screenshot of these long halls that remind me of the grand halls of the Jedi Temple, but when you look out the window, it could be a different location. For all I know, it could just be a familiar place to Obi-Wan that is turned into an Imperial Academy where there's a lot of an Imperial presence. Don't forget, like, the Empire's taken over. This is 10 years in to this new regime of the Empire, where they've, by this point, quite fortified themselves in probably all the places where the Jedi once defended and the Republic. So I can't wait for that kind of rich lore and content, because other than Knights of the Old Republic, one of my favorite periods in time is post-Revenge of the Sith, before A New Hope as well, and this is going to be it's just such a dark and dreary time. That's why I'm so hyped for this series in more ways than just one or two, you know, Obi-Wan and Hayden. There's a lot of other things that I think are going to be really awesome for Star Wars fans of old. But the cool thing as well is that a couple of these concept arts, I believe one of them in particular, shows a bunch of speeders as well with some rebel pilots there, so it will hopefully establish that Obi-Wan will be very much so aware and in contact with the Rebel Alliance, and he sees the effort they're making in its infancy, because once again, 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, they're not as built up as they were in A New Hope, and even then it paled in comparison to the fist of the Empire. But what I like about this is that it could show Obi-Wan being familiar with the effort of the Rebel Alliance, and not only that, you may be thinking, well, why doesn't he stay with them? Well, we can't forget his task is to still go back to Tatooine, but I like to think that Obi-Wan still thinks, oh, at least there is a resistance out there. Up next, we do see Vader in, I believe, his throne room. Now, this could be on Mustafar. I'm thinking it could be, and some people might be pointing out, but there doesn't seem to be blatant lava in the gaps outside, but that could be due to Mustafar healing over a period of time. Now, I'm a bit confused as to the timeline of that, when Mustafar started to heal and how long after Revenge of the Sith that was, and a lot of people are having a bit of discourse about who that is in the hologram. Of course, you know, it could be the Emperor, but I would be willing to bet my money on it's just Vader barking out orders to the Inquisitors. And who knows, we might get a choking scene across a hologram kind of thing, in where he's getting frustrated about their competency, if you will, that maybe they were bested by this Jedi, with a description similar to what Vader recognizes. And maybe it could be news of Trilla's death, or this could be Trilla in a cloaked mode talking to Vader about her findings and how Obi-Wan is skipping systems. And that is when, as you can imagine, at some point into it, he decides to take matters into his own hands, leading to this screenshot here. Other than that, obviously, we did get some behind-the-scenes training footage of Ewan. That's always great to see. I wish we saw Hayden, though. But obviously, the clash here with Vader and Obi-Wan. Now, first glance, at face value, you think, oh my god, is this Mustafar? But it just because it has flames doesn't mean that it is, because some of the background scenery here looks like it could be like ramps of a ship that could be in the midst of a destruction. Who knows? I do feel like they could mimic, not necessarily the how far they tried to make things disastrous with the Mustafar duel, but I do feel like they could replicate some destruction going on again in their fight. Just like how, you know, when they were fighting on Mustafar, things were just, you know, shit was going sideways all around them. The last thing I wanted to comment in terms of this is this real or isn't it? Well, the way they're alluding to it is that they will clash blades again. Now, of course, that could be somewhat of a misdirect in how it is true, but it isn't, because it could be a vision. But if you ask me, the vision thing is a bit of a cop-outy kind of thing, where it's just like, are they really just going to fight in their dreams? I don't know about that. I mean, they could. I could be completely wrong about that. But the reason why I brought this up is because the quotes I've spoken about before and some fans are somewhat debating about, I see completely both sides. So in Star Wars A New Hope, Vader literally says, "We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." Now, that refers to most people as he was the learner when Obi-Wan left him on Mustafar, but now, the last time they met, compared to now, he is the master, he is Vader, the circle is now complete. But before that, before he ran into Kenobi on the Death Star, he was sensing his presence, if you remember, and he says, "I sense something, a presence I've not felt since... ... Never answered. Now, most fans, I'm guessing there's going to be people saying in the comments below saying, that's obviously referencing Mustafar. Yeah, I'm not saying that you're wrong. But the fact that they never articulated a presence I've not felt since could have been, you know, 10 years after Revenge of the Sith in this series. Now, the reason a lot of people will kind of, you know, try and argue against this is the quote I mentioned beforehand, where what discounts what I'm getting into with the presence I've not felt since is the fact that they're saying, you know, when I left you I was but the learner, now I am the master. They're saying, well, if Vader faces Obi-Wan in a physical way in this series, he wouldn't be a learner still. So I get what you're saying there. But my argument against that, and this is kind of a bit of a weak defense, just because it's 10 years post-Revenge of the Sith and Vader is a powerful man, don't get me wrong, he might have still not regarded himself as a master. Do you see where I'm getting at there? And then when you combine that with the line before he said that to Obi-Wan when they were facing each other, as I sense something, a presence I've not felt since, you can argue, and they could squeeze this in there, if it is a physical duel and not just a vision-y one, that I have not felt this presence since the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And he didn't regard himself as powerful as he does in the Death Star scene back then in his fight with Obi-Wan during the Obi-Wan series compared to what he does in A New Hope. So I hope you followed me there. I just wanted to offer my opinion on that because for me, personally, it would work. I understand how it doesn't work for everyone, but the whole thing, I sense something, a presence I've not felt since, and how Vader, obviously, I guess you could say, isn't as powerful 10 years post-Revenge of the Sith as he is in A New Hope. You know, there is some wiggle room there, and I think that's what they're trying to take advantage of, even if it's not airtight, to try and make this series a little bit more entertaining. I think there is enough wiggle room to accept that canon, if you will. But some people are like, nah. So what are your thoughts? I would love to know down in the comments below. I would have liked to have spoke for even longer, but there's not really too much more to say. Let me know what you think about Trilla, the Inquisitor, as well. That could just be a retcon, because, you know, you could easily say our Jedi Fallen Order actually took place around the time of the Obi Wan Kenobi series instead of 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. Or they might not retcon it, and she actually didn't die from that wound. Who knows? There's a lot to discuss here, so I'm looking forward to your comments down in the comments below. Other than that, hey, I want to cover more Star Wars content. As you can tell, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, even though I don't cover it all the time. I will be covering Obi-Wan, though. You can be damn sure about that, so do subscribe. Like this video if you did enjoy it. And, of course, if you want to stay up to date with me a little bit more, I do have links to my Twitter down in the comment section, in the top pinned comments. Same with my Discord server. But everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. And I guess, may the Force be with you always.